Brands on Brands.
Hey, what's up? It's Brandon here. We are talking today about paid, owned, and earned media. This is part 2 of 3, focusing on earned media. Check it out.
In a world where advertising is ignored, business is exposed, and the only constant is change, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands on Brands, a home for those who think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here's your host, Brandon Birkmeyer.
Welcome. Hey. Welcome to Brands on Brands on Brands. I'm Brandon Birkmeyer, your personal marketing coach, and I believe that building a brand that matters today is the only way for a business to thrive tomorrow. I appreciate you guys being here and listening today. And today we're talking about paid, owned, and earned media. This is a 3-part series. We already talked about owned media in part 1, and you can go back to that. Today, we are talking about part 2, which is going to be earned media specifically. So we'll dive into that a little bit. But before we do, if you'd like to refer back to any of the specific lessons from today's episodes, go to brandsonbrands.com/140 for the full blog and downloadable resources. Also, I do want to let you know that I help people like you develop your personal brand. If you've ever thought about starting a personal brand or basically building content that can help your reputation, let me know. Reach out. If you have a podcast, I can audit your podcast. If you don't, I can help you start one. Let's figure it out together. Let's chat about your ideas. Just set up a call with me. Go to brandsonbrands.com/coach and we can chat it up. All right, now let's jump into the show.
Brands on Brands.
All right, paid, owned, and earned media. Specifically, again, we're talking about earned media today. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about what this show, how this came to be, how this episode came to be, what got me thinking about this. And really, it's a topic of content discovery. I know a lot of content creators out there that still have to ask the question, how do I get people to find the content that I'm creating? Because what's the point of creating it if no one's listening, right? So content discovery is something I wanted to talk a lot about. And the piece that we're focusing on is this earned media part. And your content discovery really, it gets nurtured when you can have more people exposed through it. And you can do that leveraging what we call earned media. Now, your audience already follows other people and other channels. That's the key to this. Your audience isn't out there living in a vacuum. They just haven't heard of you, but they are already walking through their day, listening to other people, joining groups that they find important, going to events, watching shows, listening to shows, and have the people that they follow and the channels that they listen to. They are consuming media already. Your job is not to convince them to consume media. Your job is to expose them to your content and your message. So one good way to do that is to introduce yourself to those audiences where they currently are. And the best part about earned media and taking this approach is that it's free. It doesn't cost you a cent to get featured on someone else's show. And what it will take is a little bit of effort, a little bit of planning, a little bit of strategy. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So the reason that we want to be paying attention to today's episode is that basically when you're out there meeting people that are new for the first time, when you are introducing your brand to new people for the first time, it helps to have someone introducing you. Think about when you go to a party. It's hard to be a stranger that walks up and introduces yourself to someone you've never met before. But if you know someone and that person walks you around the party and introduces you to new people, they are more than happy to receive you and to learn more about you. And it's just like that with media. No one wants to talk to strangers. The point is to have someone else tell your story for you. If you can take those steps, then you'll be on your way to leveraging earned media in the right way. So what we'll dive into a little bit is what is earned media specifically? What's the role it'll play in your business and in your content creation process and content discovery process? and what are some of the tactics you can take to generate discovery leveraging earned media. So we'll go through those. Now, let's start with what is it? What is earned media? The best way to think about it is as word of mouth and exposure on other people's channels, like we were just talking about. Word of mouth and exposure on other people's channels is basically the foundation of earned media. It is the things that other people say about you. Now, that can be through publicity or PR, public relations, basically you finding a way to be featured or have your content featured or your message featured, or you yourself featured on someone else's show or in an article, a popular publication in your industry, or a podcast in your industry, or a Facebook Live or a YouTube channel, you being featured on someone else's show or you being talked about in someone else's article is traditional publicity. And that's all earned because someone else has done the work to create that channel, and you show up, you provide your point of view, and then they share that with all of the people that they've developed over time as their following, their fan base. So publicity is one piece of earned media. Sharing and advocacy is another part of earned media. And that would be where the things that you create and you post on your channels are then shared by other people on their channels. So think of someone reposting your tweet or retweeting your tweet, or think of someone resharing your Facebook or Instagram post, or tagging you in a post for something that you've created. Or think of the people that you've helped, that you've coached maybe, that share their testimonials, whether they put it on Yelp or they share it on LinkedIn or they post it to your Facebook page or they post it to their own pages. There's someone saying, this person's helped me, or this message that they had really resided with me, or I love that they said this and it spoke to me today, whatever that is. A big part of earned media is other people telling your story, and it could be on their channels. Maybe it's on a big media channel, but it's their 100 followers or their 500 followers. And that can get larger and larger. Maybe there's someone you meet that has a lot of influence. You getting into their channels is important. And that might be, maybe they have a Facebook group that's really engaged. That's 100 people or 1,000 people. Or maybe they actually have built influence as an individual. Someone in your industry is either speaking on stages or writing books, or has built a decent following on social media. Or maybe they have a large engaged email list. Finding a person in your industry, an influencer in your industry, might be the ticket for you. That's another piece of earned media, those influencer relationships. So part of this is, how do you get out there, submit your information to public media channels, that's publicity, or get your people to share it on their channels, that's sharing and advocacy, or get influencers in your space or peers in your space to tell your story for you. And that's building relationships. So that's the core piece of earned media that I want you guys to think about when you're figuring out how to get your content discovered. Now, what's the role that earned media plays in content discovery? We're going to talk about this. Why do you go through the trouble, right? Well, the first is, when you think about that person in the party example we talked about, is trust. Trust through association. The person you know already has a relationship with their audience or with the other people. And when someone takes you and introduces you, they are trusting not you, but the person you're with, that they are introducing someone that is worthy of being introduced. Because why would they take the time if they didn't like you, for example? So the first part is trust through association. You've somehow made an acquaintance that is connected to that person and you want them to introduce you. So trust through association is one of the roles of earned media. Another is kind of along that same route, but think of it as, instead of you having to find audiences that we call cold audiences that have never heard of you, it's a warm introduction to a cold audience. So it's like having a warm audience, except someone else has warmed them up for you. So a lot of you are trying to figure out how to get strangers to like you or to know you. And that warm introduction, it's not just the association you're getting, but literally it's new eyeballs. It's new people that maybe you've not even thought of reaching out to. They know them already. So it's new audiences and a warm introduction to those people. And then another role of earned media is essentially this idea of credibility, that the more people you know, it's cumulative, right? The more people that introduce you, the more people in a room, if it wasn't just one person, if it was 2 or 3 or 4, or everyone in the room mentions you. Actually, you're talking about Brandon. Have you met Brandon? He's great at that. The more people mention you, they're like, yeah, someone else was just talking about him. That's credibility over time, and it accumulates. So another great piece of earned media is the more people see you being shared across all these channels that they come in contact with, whether it's in person or social or something else, the more credibility you're building. It's social proof in its own right. So that's another role. And then the last is basically referrals. Like you want people saying, I got a guy for that, and you're the guy or the girl, right? Whatever it is. And those referrals are huge. They call it word of mouth, but essentially it's a referral. It's saying, oh yeah, I know an accountant. I know a financial advisor. I know a website guy. I know someone to fix your car or your plumbing or your roof or your electricity. All those things. Knowing someone that's done it, when someone's looking for that, being the referrer, it's a win-win for everyone. The person giving advice feels like they were helping the person asking for it. And then you, as someone who is the service provider, gets the benefit of that relationship. So those referrals are huge. So you becoming known as the person that does the thing that you do and being trusted by people to refer you is huge. So that's a big role of earned media as well. So as we've talked about it, we've gone into what is it and the role of it. Now the last piece is I want to give you some tactics, right? I want to give you some realistic tactics to get your brand discovered, leveraging the power of earned media. So here's a few things to think about that's really going to make this easier for it to happen for you. The first is clear positioning and messaging. That's you taking the time to actually hone in on what is it you're going to tell people that helps them understand what you really do and who you really help. So for example, if I just say, hey, I'm a marketing guy, that's a little vague and it doesn't, next time when someone's having a conversation, they don't know exactly who I can help and how I help them. But if I say, hey, I help service-based entrepreneurs develop their personal brands, or I get even deeper and I say, I help coaches develop their personal brand online. That's very specific. So anytime someone meets a coach, they might say, you know what, Brandon can help you develop your personal brand. And you can get more specific as you go, but you figuring out how to say it in a way that's clear and that other people can take and run with is really helpful. So that clear positioning and messaging is going to take you further. And it's one of the tactics you're going to need for earned media to really take you farther as well. And not just the what to say, but when I say positioning, part of it is what makes you different, what makes you unique, what makes you special. And you might have to explain that in multiple ways. It might be you explaining your experience. Hey, myself, I've been in marketing 18 plus years. I worked with massive brands and I take what I've learned and apply it to personal brands. And I've also built it for myself. Like that's positioning. Not everyone has had a long career in marketing and then also has built their personal brand. That's, my positioning, but you might have yours. You have a lot of experience in something, or you've really honed in on one particular thing that you're good at. For example, I love content marketing. I love podcasting. Those are tools that I use, things in my tool belt that I think are really large keys to helping with personal branding. Someone else might say they're great at personal branding too, but they love copywriting and blogging, whatever that thing is. Those are two different people serving the same audience, but with a different background or skill. So you want to position yourself in a market so people understand what is it that you're good at and how are you different than other people that do the same thing you do. So if you want to be able to leverage the power of earned media, being able to understand how to say what you do, who you do it for, and how you do it in a clear way that differentiates you from everyone else that does it is going to be one of your first steps. And the reason that that's important is you want other people to consistently share who you are and what you're all about. So for them to do it, you have to do it too. If you want other people to share who you are and what you are about, you have to do it first on a consistent basis. And as you do it over and over and over, it'll embed in their minds and they'll be able to do it as well. So the next thing is you need to build meaningful relationships. If you want people in your industry, you want your peers to talk about you, then you have to build relationships with them. And, we talk about networking and building your pool of influence, but essentially it's all about relationships. So the more people you know, and the more people that know you and like you and want to help you, the more people are going to be available to share your information with others. So building meaningful relationships is a huge step. And think about it this way. Think about the who you would want to connect with, right? So peers, like I mentioned before, in your industry. So if I'm a branding person, I might want to talk to other branding people and have those relationships so that we all can help each other out. I also want to talk to other creators, other people putting content out there in my industry because they've started to build their own audiences, regardless of how big or small they are. They are out there actively creating content. So a creator that I can either collaborate with or that just is out there building their audience is going to be helpful in terms of relationship building. Another one is influencers, people that have gone beyond creating and have actually established themselves as a leader in the market is someone that you definitely want to build a relationship with. And you might have to do that differently. Instead of just collaborating or saying hello and introducing yourself, they might be harder to get to. So you might actually have to participate in their programs or become involved in their communities, become an active participant in the things that they create or do. They host something live. How do you show up live and put yourself in a room or in a situation where you can actually engage with them and shake their hand and get to know them better? I've heard of people paying for coaching programs or going on trips to visit people's retreats and whatever else just to get in the room with someone that might be an influencer in their category. And that's the way you have to think about this. How do I build meaningful relationships with the people that have influence and audiences in my industry? And then another one is think about media platforms. Who are the companies that are creating content in your industry other than these people? Maybe it's an established media company or an established trade association or trade company or an established event or event company that people in your industry go to. Like I like to podcast. I go to podcasting conventions and podcasting events. I go to social media marketing events and other marketing conferences so that I can meet people that are in my space and we can find ways to connect and build relationship. Those platforms, those media platforms are the next thing to look at because that's where a lot of your influencers and creators are going to be congregating. And then the last is customers. How do you build meaningful relationships with customers? As you start to interact with people that might want to do business with you or that aren't ready yet to do business with you, but are your right type of customer, find ways to help them. Find ways to have conversations, get them on the phone, learn more about them, find ways to help them in small ways at first. And along the way, maybe not now or in 3 months or in 6 months, but at some point, they might need what you have, or they might know someone that needs what you have and will refer them along the way. And even honestly, a good piece of advice that you give to someone might be enough for them to leave you a testimonial or to pass your information on to someone else. If you can think about this as building relationships one at a time, making an impact on one person at a time, your efforts will go a lot further. At the end of the day, think about how do you give people something to talk about? How do you interact with them in a way that makes an impact? How do you create opportunity and conversations and relationships in a way that gives you a chance for someone to say something about you? Give them something to talk about, whether it's something you say or something you do or something you invest into a relationship. Give them something to talk about so that when they think of the thing that you do, they think of you as a person that they should refer. Those are the tactics. So I'll go through them quickly. Again, it's clear positioning and messaging. It's building meaningful relationships with peers, creators, influencers, media platforms, and customers. And lastly, it's making an impact one person at a time. If you can do those things, you will be on your way to developing an earned media program that will drive awareness, drive attention to your business. It'll also along the way be doing those things we talked about, be building association. It'll be allowing for warm introductions and referrals, and all the while building credibility of your brand and your business. That's the message for today. If you'd like to grow your personal brand and help more people discover your content, you have to think about leveraging the power of earned media, build relationships, get featured on other people's platforms, and give them something to talk about. If you enjoyed the show today, I appreciate your time, guys. Take a screen grab and tag me on Instagram at Brandon Birkmeyer. And remember, building your brand is a journey. Tackle these little items each day and move forward. And I hope that what you heard today is something you can implement in your life. I hope it was helpful. Thank you for listening. And I will, as always, catch you guys next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to not just help you build a business, but build a brand. Head over to brandonbrands.com for more resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandonbrands.com.